Welcome to the Dogs Podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, and Josh All.
What's up, Browns fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Dogs Podcast. Josh, Justin, and Blake coming with to you guys virtually today. New dad, Josh. Sick kids, Justin. Just busy me. So we're coming to you virtually here tonight. We actually planned on doing a studio episode this week, and then the good Lord didn't want us to. He said, you guys have to do it virtually this week. So we will be back in the studio, though, on Sunday for our 500th episode. I'm just going to get this out of the way now. Make sure you guys tune in 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Sunday, February 16th. It's going to be our 500th episode. We can't believe we're at 500 episodes, to be honest. We're going to be talking all things Browns, off-season, the season in general. It's just going to be a good, just guys sitting around in the garage drinking beer kind of episode. I think we got some fun stuff lined up. Hopefully we can get Kenny Mack to call in for at least a few minutes. And I think you guys will like a couple of the surprises that we have just to kind of celebrate doing 500 episodes with a lot of you guys have been watching for a while now. We greatly appreciate it. To show our appreciation, to help grow the show, we are doing giveaways during the live episode on Sunday. Anybody who is already a YouTube member who becomes a YouTube member between now and the end of that episode, throughout that episode, you'll be entered for a chance to win a Dogs Podcast t-shirt. We're going to give away 3 in that episode. And anybody who is a Dog Pack member now or becomes one between now and the end of that episode, you'll be entered for a chance to win a Browns jersey during that live episode. So if you want to become a YouTube member, you just make sure you have a YouTube I don't know what's it called, account. And then you just sign up and become a YouTube member. It's only 99 cents a month. That'll enter you for a chance to win a Dogs Podcast t-shirt during that live on Sunday. If you want to become a Dog Pack member, you just head to jointhedogs.com. That gets you into the private Discord, lets you play fantasy football with us. It gets you entered into that drawing for the free Browns jersey on Sunday. And we also are also talking about revamping that. We've already been in talks with some of the Dog Pack members about some things they want. We want to hear from you guys about things you guys want out of the Dog Pack to make that even better. So if you join that for the jersey, know that we're making it bigger and better as we move forward, heading into episode 501. So I think it's going to be a fun episode, and the Dog Pack's a ton of fun for everybody who is involved. So I hope I'm not underselling it by saying we're looking to revamp it. It already is a lot of fun. We've met a lot of cool people through it. We built a really kind of like a strong online community through there. So if you're interested in something like that, it's jointhedogs.com to become that official Dog Pack member and be entered for that chance at the Browns jersey during the live on Sunday. If you want to get intros and voicemails on the show, head to thedogspodcast.com, tap leave voicemail on the drop-down menu. If you are watching on YouTube and you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Make sure to tap the notification bell so you don't miss any of the content that we're putting out, like the 500th episode on Sunday. You can find us on all the major social media platforms and search at The Dogs Podcast. And if you prefer to listen to the show, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, and Google. So we got a fun episode lined up today. Obviously going to be talking about Browns, but I think it would be core of us as just football fans in general to not talk about the Super Bowl. It just happened. So we're going to just kind of give you our 2 cents on the Super Bowl, what it says about Mahomes, maybe kind of related to the Browns and how the Eagles have built their team. You know, obviously Andrew Berry spent time in the Eagles organization, kind of a Howie Roseman descendant. So I think we got a lot of cool stuff to get into. I guess the first thing I'll open up is just what did you guys think of the Super Bowl, the game? Because it was so boring, in my opinion.
Yeah, I did not get the vibe during the game that it was going to be a Tom Brady New England comeback over the Falcons situation. It was the Eagles were dominating them, pouring it on, and just really embarrassing them. And it was so interesting that, you know, we've said on the show, and I've said to a lot of people all season long, like the Chiefs are not as good as their record. This is not the Chiefs team from years past. They're getting lucky. They're barely winning some of these games. They're getting controversial calls at the end, lucking out on missed field goals by the Broncos, all that kind of stuff. And then on the biggest stage, they got totally exposed.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. I went into the game I was still going to watch it, but I was like, I've already watched this game. Obviously they added, Eagles added Saquon, but I was kind of just like, I was ready to see some new people in the Super Bowl finally. And I thought this was the year. But hey, good for Philadelphia. because they literally went in and put on a show. They did not care that they were going against a 2-time AK three-peat. I love the stuff like, when you started hearing about Philadelphia players and they're like, yeah, we were here and they were trademarking three-peat. So we just went in there and buried them. And I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I like that. I like that kind of attitude. But no, good for them. Like you said, Josh, dominant performance. Their defense, wow. Like, I don't think you can oversell that enough. Like, their defense was phenomenal.
I said on the episode I did with Kenny when we kind of talked about who we thought was going to win the game before the game, obviously. And I said that my brain said the Eagles would win because on paper the roster was better top to bottom, outside of quarterback and head coach. I said, but my gut was telling me Kansas City. And that kind of lends itself to how you didn't pick against Tom Brady until you knew like it was over, until you saw with your own eyes, okay, it's done. I can pick. That's kind of how I was with the Chiefs. Like, I wasn't going to pick against the Chiefs until I saw like what I just saw in that game. The Chiefs are approaching, I think they're a little bit of a crossroads. Like they obviously still have Mahomes. They still have Reed. Rashee Rice should come back hopefully next year, healthy. And he was having a great season before he got hurt. Pacheco's a really solid running back, but Travis Kelce's old, and he looked old this year. Thumbs up, I guess. I still haven't figured out why it does that. If anybody knows why it does that, tell me in the comments so I can fix it. But I think they're clearly, they've leaned on that defense heavy ever since Tyreek Hill left. Okay, they gave Pat Mahomes the big contract. They let Tyreek Hill. Did they trade him?
Yeah,
they end up trading him right to Miami, and they've really leaned on the defense. Josh, like I don't like to say the Chiefs win because of the refs, because you don't win that many games just because the refs are giving you games. But they do get favorable calls sometimes, just like the year the Browns went to the playoffs 2 years ago. We of some favorable calls. Like sometimes they go your way, sometimes they don't. But there's no doubt, like the Chiefs, they didn't beat themselves, most of the time. This was one of the first games of the year where they really beat themselves in terms of turnovers and stuff like that. But they got to retool a little bit, or I think like you could see some other teams out of the AFC start to come out over them. As long as they got Chris Jones in the defense, they're going to be in every single game. And if they have Pat Mahomes, they're going to be scary. You don't want to give them the ball late. But I do think they can't just roll it back next year and think like it's going to be okay. I look for them to retool. I will say this, and I put this on X after the game. As much as I like to brag about how I was right on the Lions, I was early on the Lions a couple seasons ago, I'll expose my own freezing cold take. After the Eagles played the Browns this year, I got on this show and said, the Eagles are dog water. And I said, I don't know if Nick Sirianni is going to make it through the season. And I don't know how many more games these guys win. I think a lot of us were in agreement. Like the Eagles are, we shut down Saquon. Jalen didn't do anything against us. I mean, we were a Deshaun Watson led offense, couldn't do anything. And it was like, man, the Eagles look barely better than us, and we knew how bad we were. And then they went on to not lose. They only lost one more game the rest of the season and dominated the Super Bowl. So don't ever come on here and say I'm not afraid to admit when I was dead.
Well, I don't think that at the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was the same game where he was chirping at the fans and telling them, like, I can't remember exactly like the lingo, but he was just kind of like, I am him type stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really good at coaching this team, and yelling at Cleveland Browns fans because, we're the enemy, I guess. I don't know, but no, you were in the right. It was very, very dysfunctional for a little bit. Every week they'd have a press conference and Jalen Hurts and him would be like, nah, we're cool. Everything's great, and the media kind of drove that. Obviously, they figured out what was going on. And as much as the defense was great, Jalen Hurts, that was like a prove it kind of moment for him. Like a lot of people, even me, I have him as like a dynasty quarterback. And I'm like, should I be worried that maybe he isn't the guy? You know what I mean? For a little bit. But great performance. Their offense, as far as like roster wise, their offense is very good too. They've got elite weapons all over the place. And you got to think that they're going to be really good for a good while.
One thing I really like about Jalen Hurts is his demeanor on the field. The dude is even keel, stone cold the whole time. I mean, they're up 27 or something, nothing. Not a grin, not even a little smirk on his. I mean, he is dialed in. I don't think he smiled until he raised the Super Bowl trophy at the end. I really don't. He's so locked in and focused. I'm not saying you have to be that way, but I think it really helps him, especially with he's got kind of that underdog backstory where he was benched in the national championship game for Tua, had to transfer to Oklahoma, was kind of undersold going into the draft. People are, he's like a third round pick. He's, kind of forget about him. And then he comes in behind Carson Wentz after he got his big contract in Philly. And they're like, okay, we need to get rid of Wentz and make this dude the guy. And 2 Super Bowls now, won 1, lost 1 by 3. He's definitely making himself a good career.
For sure.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Getting cut, or not cut, but getting benched in that national championship is almost a blessing in disguise for him, because it sets him up to transfer to Oklahoma to play for Lincoln Riley, who I think is crazy overrated as a head coach. But there's no doubt he's like a very good offensive mind and can get the most out of quarterbacks. And I think transferring to Oklahoma, playing in Lincoln Riley's system, really honing his skills as a passer and playing in a bit, and maybe not as much of a pro style offense. Obviously, Alabama is a lot of turnaround, hand the ball off, kind of like almost like a Kevin Stefanski offense. And they got a chance for him to play in something that was more suited to his style, which then I think is what got him drafted in the second round, had him as a Heisman finalist. And then you're able to build an offense around him. Honestly, got Kellen Moore a head coaching job probably. So it was an all around butt whooping, and then it was a terrible, boring game. I know a lot of people, I guess we were talking about the halftime show. A lot of people are talking about it. I was one of these people where I thought it just was what it was. I've seen worse halftime shows and I've seen better halftime shows. I'm not like the world's biggest Kendrick Lamar fan. I'm not a Kendrick Lamar hater either. I just like I don't listen to tons of rap. I sometimes I do, but I just think when you're doing the Super Bowl, and this is how I kind of described it. You were talking about my dad. I doubt my dad watched it, but if he did, I'm sure he hated it. But it's one of those things where I feel like if you're going to play the Super Bowl, you got to be, and I don't like radio top 40 music really, but you got to be like a radio top 40 artist to hit that mass appeal. And the way I explained it to some people was, I guarantee you my dad is not a Bruno Mars fan, but if you played my dad 10 Bruno Mars fans, he probably knows 6 or 7 of them. My dad is not a Kendrick Lamar fan. And if you played my dad 10 Kendrick Lamar fans, I can guarantee you he wouldn't know a single one. Even if you played his biggest hits, he would have no idea who. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying when you're playing a game like the Super Bowl, I think it lends itself to get somebody who has more mass appeal. If you don't want people complaining, if you don't care, then put whoever you want up. Like I don't have a problem with it, but I understand the people who were like, I don't get it. Why is he doing this? Like I could see both sides to the argument. Like just let Bruno Mars play it every year. He's got,
I like Bruno Mars, bro.
Yeah. All right, so, but that's just kind of like my take on the halftime show. Like I wasn't anti the halftime show, but it was what I was.
For me, and I told Justin before the show, I can't comment too much because that was my put the kids to bed period of the game. I took advantage of that because I'm not a huge Kendrick Lamar guy either, so I didn't really care if I missed the halftime show. But I just feel like halftime show at the Super Bowl in general every year, it kind of sucks. I mean, really, it gets really hyped up, and then they're trying to assemble a stage and audio stuff like we're in the nick of time, and it's never that great. And it's always like who can out gimmick the last show from the last year, and it's it's okay. I mean, some are okay, some are not, but it is what it is, like you said.
Sorry, I'm not a boomer or like a prude, but I did enjoy that his halftime show was like about his performance and his music and not just like shock value, in terms of like just like half naked people running around and you know what I mean? Like I'm not like, so I thought that I appreciate that it was like about his art, so I like that. Like you said, a lot of halftime shows suck. It's got to be very rushed.
Yeah.
Bring Creed back. What do we got to do to get Creed back?
Yeah, baby.
I'll say that you'll find the person who didn't like the Creed halftime show. You won't find that person.
I'll say this. I think that the halftime show this year was aimed at a younger crowd. You know what I mean? But I like Kendrick Lamar a lot. My only thing with Kendrick Lamar, his halftime show is like, it was a lot of his newer stuff. His older stuff is killer. Like, Josh, I'm going to list some songs off here. They're not going to mean anything to you, bro. Okay. But like his older stuff, like some swimming pools or like, what is it, money trees and stuff, that doesn't mean anything to you either, Blake. I can tell. You just weird face right now. Yeah. But his, or all right, like he's got some good stuff, from back in the day. He's very, very talented, very, very good lyricist.
I did think it was funny that he played the Drake diss track.
Oh, dude. And that's, you know what I mean? Like, he killed it, bro. Killed him.
I did.
He absolutely
think that
murdered
was
him.
very funny. So then we kind of, obviously, Browns podcast. So
Sure.
How does the Super Bowl relate to the Browns? Because we've never been further from it. Well, we have, but we're close to as far away as we were this past season. I guess when I watched the game, obviously the Eagles defense dominated. In particular, the defensive front, they didn't blitz a single time. It was a defensive coordinator's wet dream.
Yeah.
To get that kind of pressure, with only rushing 4 the entire. I mean, that's what if you can get that kind of pressure rushing 4 and you get to drop 7 in coverage, no quarterback's going to be successful. It's just not. It's not going to happen. And so then obviously a lot of talk after the game, especially online, was this is why you don't take the quarterback at 2. This is why you go get Abdul Carter. Look at this dominant defense. And I will say this, the Eagles defense dominated, but guess what? They still had Jalen Hurts, who won MVP.
Yes. That's my thing. All I heard right after the game was we got to take Abdul Carter. And you guys know I like Abdul Carter. Dude's a stud. But if you don't have the other piece, me and Josh were talking about it right before you got on. If you don't have the biggest piece to build around, what are we building? You know what I mean? Thanks for that thumbs up, Blake. Appreciate that.
I was just sitting here. And
yeah, whatever, bro. I appreciate
crazy.
it. It was in your mind. But that's my biggest thing is like, I feel like, yeah, okay, they had an explosive defense and they did shut them down, but their offense is also equally built. I mean, damn near perfect. They have studs at almost every position. Their offensive line, probably the best in football. You know what I mean? We've got some questions. They've got a quarterback. We technically don't have one. They've got a top of the line running back right now. We're not sure if we have that, and that's just one side of the ball. And I know we've talked and we're going to have a draft and we're going to do some free agency and plug some holes. I just think like if you don't have the quarterback, and I've been doing this my whole life, what are we doing now? You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? We're just going to do this for another 25 years and just keep doing this over and over. I can't do that.
There's a lot of
Pick a damn quarterback.
Go ahead,
of
Josh.
the defense wins championship stuff, from the Abdul Carter and the pass on the quarterback crowd and all that kind of stuff. But the quarterback, the offense, you have to have that to even get to the championship. I mean, you watch the NFL playoffs and there's a lot. Every team that's in there's good. Okay, these are the good teams that make the playoffs. They all have good defenses. And what teams overcame the other, like the Texans overcoming the Chargers' great defense, great offense, right? And obviously the Texans' defense shutting down the Chargers and everything because they didn't have the weapons. You talked about everything that the Eagles had on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Jalen Hurts throws a dime pass to Devontae Smith in the end zone, hits A.J. Brown, and he even threw that ball, the touchdown to A.J. Brown, a little late. He was wide open like 2 seconds before he even hit him, and he still was able to get to the end zone. So you got to have all those pieces. It is the ultimate team sport. But we just saw in a 3-14 season, if you don't have the quarterback in place, those other pieces do not matter nearly as much.
No, like you said too, you gotta have the Jalen Hurts' best 2 games of the year were the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl. Okay, so if you take Jalen Hurts off this team and you plug in a bum,
Kenny Pickett,
I don't care. Yeah, if Kenny Pickett starts all year for the Eagles, even with their dominant defense and Saquon Barkley, they aren't in the Super Bowl. And Saquon Barkley probably doesn't rush for 2,000 yards.
No,
because Saquon Barkley is clearly an X factor and a difference maker by adding them to the offensive roster. But what allows him to be open and have open rushing lanes and all that is the fact that the defense still has to respect Jalen Hurts. And you saw in this, the Chiefs, you can't say defense wins championships. Chiefs have one of the best defenses in football also. But you could tell that they were selling out to stop Saquon. They were not going to let Saquon run all over them. And Jalen Hurts was good enough to take advantage of it all game. And so do I think Jalen Hurts is Patrick Mahomes good? No. I don't think he's Josh Allen good. He might not even be Lamar Jackson good. He's Joe Burrow good. He's obviously one of the upper quarterbacks, but I don't think he's necessarily in that top tier of quarterbacks. but he is good enough that he won't lose you any football games, and he will win you 4 or 5 football games. And if because they have a great running back in a defense, they can have that kind of quarterback. But he is absolutely a reason they are where they are. Again, as Kenny Pickett starts for them, they don't win all these games and they don't go to the Super Bowl. If you ask Jalen Hurts to be Patrick Mahomes, his numbers would probably suffer. He'd turn the ball over more. He wouldn't look as good, but he doesn't have to be that. They have the defense, they have the running game, and then he is good enough to not lose it. And then when you need it the most against the top defenses, and they're like, we're not going to let Saquon Barkley beat us. Okay, I'm still good enough to go out there and win this football game for my team then. I might not be good enough to play this style 18 straight weeks. I can do this a couple times a year and win my team a football game. And we don't have a quarterback good enough to do that. And until we do, I don't care how good the defense is. I don't care what running backs we have, how good our offensive line is. We're not going to win meaningful football games.
Hey, Browns fans, we're excited to tell you guys about the new season of Living for We, the award-winning podcast from Idea Stream Public Media as part of the Connecting the Dots Between Race and Health initiative. This awesome podcast is hosted by Marlene Harris-Taylor. Season 1 focused on livability for Black women in Cleveland, but Season 2 explores the most pressing mental health epidemic facing the greater Cleveland area, and that is gun violence. Gun violence is the leading cause of death for young people in these neighborhoods, and every bullet fired creates 2 victims, the person in front of the gun and the person pulling the trigger. So join host Marlene Harris-Taylor, joined by her new co-host, Maisha Watkins, director of the Cleveland Peacemakers Alliance, as they highlight the untold stories and spotlight local heroes who are already in the trenches working for change. This season provides real talk and real solutions from both the victims of gun violence and the perpetrators with a story to tell. New episodes are released every other Tuesday starting February 11th. Subscribe now to Living for We on your favorite podcast app or watch the video version on IdeaStream's YouTube channel. Learn more at ideastream.com/podcast/living-for-we.
There are some things you wouldn't mind being stuck with, like a large unexpected inheritance. An always on the verge of death phone that has to be plugged in just right so it charges is not one of those things. Switch to Verizon and we'll pay off your old phone. Up to $800 via prepaid MasterCard so you can get a new one. Just trade in any phone from our top brands on any unlimited plan. With new line on My Plan. Additional terms apply for trade-in and pay off your phone offer. See Verizon.com for details.
Fair. I think you could even make the argument Jalen Hurts is an X factor on his own. You know what I mean? Like with his rushing, and the dude's got an arm, and weapon. Like we've said, you have AJ Brown, who he's still very, very good. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people are like, maybe he's starting to make the turn. I'm like, I don't know. He still looks pretty damn dominant. And then you got Devontae Smith on the other side. It's like, oh my gosh, you pick your poison, basically.
Yeah, and it's not like Jalen Hurts played a perfect game. Obviously it was Patrick Mahomes. What was it, like his worst game of his career? His QBR was like 11. It was terrible. Up until the third quarter, it was bad. It was like 2 picks and a fumble and like 100 yards, maybe 30 yards. Yeah,
I didn't even think it was that. It was like 40 or 50.
Yeah.
He was struggling.
But any stats he had was straight garbage stats.
Yeah, exactly. By the end of the game, none of it really mattered at all. But, Jalen Hurts had the bad pass early in the game, made a bad decision to try to throw the ball up. He was getting pressured, threw it way short, got picked off when they were in position to, I think, kick a field goal and go up 10-0 at that time. And it was like, well, that was a big mistake. But what I like about Hurts, too, and I talked about his demeanor earlier, it's the short memory. He does not get rattled or gun shy because he threw a pick or made a bad play or fumbled the ball. He's going to come right back out, and it actually kind of drives him to do even more, the next time he gets on the field. So, yeah, he totally he earned that. He led that offense to a dominant performance. And I like that you mentioned the NFC Championship because the Commanders are no joke. They can score. Yeah. They scored points, and they were keeping that game competitive against that dominant Eagles defense. But the Eagles offense ultimately just came out and said, nah, we're going to score all over you by the end of this. And he led them to that.
A big thing about Jalen Hurts, too, and it's nice, like if your quarterback can provide something like this, and I thought this was really well put. The Eagles start every drive 1st and 9.
Yeah, I know.
Almost 1st and 8. Because if it's a yard to yard and a half, they're going to push it, and they're going to get it.
Yep.
He is it. And to the people who say they want that play outlawed and blah, 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 I don't necessarily love the play either, but I'm not a pussy. And if I don't want to give it up, then I don't let him get to that situation. I figure out a way to stop it. If it was so easy, every team would do it. We saw just 2 weeks before how bad the Bills were at it. And they have a 6'7" quarterback or whatever he is, 240 pounds.
They can't do it.
It's just one of those things, like, he is an X factor. He squats 600 pounds. He's perfected the way to run the play. And because of that, their offense, they're going, I only need to get 8 yards on my first 3 plays, and I know we're going to get the 4th down. And so if you can find a quarterback that provides you some kind of X factor in that way, like, it's huge for the offense.
Yeah.
So I guess then, talking about building around the quarterback and whatnot, we should talk a little bit about the quarterback position for the Browns. Obviously, the biggest battle online is, do the Browns take a quarterback at 2? We are, I think, obviously all on the page of, we think the Browns should take a quarterback at 2. I think what gets lost in this a lot when we post clips online and stuff is that we are saying take a quarterback at 2 and hand them the keys to the franchise. That is not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying take a quarterback at 2, and I'm still drafting another one most likely, and I'm still adding a free agent quarterback that I think can play at a high level for minimum 1 year, to give the guy I'm drafting at 2 a chance to develop. And the reason I'm taking my guy at 2 this year, and I'm not going and getting, a player to put around my bridge, is you're not guaranteed to pick at 2 again. So the people that are saying, go, just get a quarterback next year. Well, you're not guaranteed. If you really think that if we add a top level playmaker at picks 2, or if we trade back a couple and we draft even more playmakers and we bring in a bridge quarterback who can, well, we're not going to be picking in the top 12, the top 15 next year. So you're up here, get your guy now and give him a chance to develop. And I know some people aren't high on these quarterbacks. I've seen so many different takes either way. Pretty much everything I'm seeing is saying maybe these guys aren't Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, but these guys are guys that if you develop them and you give them a chance, they can be high quality starting caliber quarterbacks for your football team.
Well, think about real quick
this guy now, why he's not rushed into it. Get this guy now and let him sit for a year and learn and develop him.
The 3 guys you just mentioned, though, we're talking about those guys, who they are right now. Coming into the league, Josh Allen this guy's kind of a project. He's got accuracy issues. They didn't really know if he was going to develop, but that he had to develop to be who he is now. He didn't start out like this. Lamar Jackson just got tucked in at the end of the first round because, we'll take a swing on this guy. Everybody beforehand was like, this guy might have to play running back or something in the NFL. Nobody really gave him a lot of credit as a quarterback. And who was the other one that you mentioned?
Patrick Mahomes.
Todd McShay was saying how Patrick Mahomes had the worst footwork he'd ever seen coming out of college. And it's just stuff that once you get to the league, if you can clean those things up, if you're willing to work and, put in the effort and the time to perfect your craft and be that guy for your team, you can do it. So none of these guys come out polished. And I think a lot of the, this quarterback class sucks. That's just regurgitated talking points that we heard all college football season. It's just people have not done their homework. I don't think a lot of people watch a lot of film on these guys. I mean, I've done stuff on Cam. I've done stuff on Shador. They're both worth a top 2 pick. If you need a quarterback, you can't pass on either one of these guys, in my opinion.
And I'd make the argument, how sure are we the guy is there next year? You know what I mean? Like, who's the guy that we're taking? Let's say if we're picking at 6. Because Manning, you got to think Manning's probably going to be really high. Who's the guy?
Yep.
Who's that next guy a year down the road that we're 100% sure we're going to basically fold on this year so that we can draft a guy next year. And like Blake said, it's not even guaranteed at all. You don't even know where the hell, you know what I mean? You could be like the Giants and win 1 game stupidly, and then all of a sudden you're picking 3rd and you don't have a quarterback. So that would be my argument, is just address it. It's the biggest need. It is our biggest need for our whole lives. We still don't have a quarterback.
A lot of people will use the fact that Jalen Hurts was a 2nd round pick, so you don't have to take your guy at 2. You can get him. I'm not gonna build my plan on the outlier. The greatest quarterback of all time is a 6th round draft pick. So that doesn't mean I'm going into drafts looking for 6th round diamond in the rough quarterbacks to hand the keys to the franchise to. I'm gonna look at, statistically speaking, most of the time the good quarterbacks come in the 1st round. Obviously, you have your guys like Brady, and you have a Jalen Hurts who is he was a second round pick, but he wasn't the last pick in the second round. You have some of these guys who go on. Kirk Cousins was a little bit later round. Dak Prescott, I think, was a second rounder. I went through and did this, but 80% of the league is first round draft picks, and all but 2 of the playoff quarterbacks were first round draft picks. And I'd make the argument, I think I did, was Russell Wilson, if he was coming out of college today, would have been a first round draft pick. He just got drafted in a time when, because you weren't 6'4", you didn't get picked in the first round. So, I'm gonna build my plan based on precedent and not off the outliers. I'm not gonna be like, well, Brock Purdy, look how good Brock Purdy's playing, so I'm gonna try to find Mr. Irrelevant to be my franchise quarterback this year because it's happened one time in the history of the football league. So it must be the way I'm gonna do my plan. No, so I'm gonna add a quarterback, but again, I'm going to get a free agent bridge. Also, I'm not saying that it has to be Cam or Shador. Personally, I feel like I'm kind of leaning, I really like Shador right now, but the Browns are the one doing all the research and the work and the interviews. My only want is for them to put all their effort and resources into finding the guy that is the guy that leads the franchise for the next 10 years. And if that turns out to be freaking somebody, I don't even know their name, and they take them at 2 and everybody's like, oh my God, I can't believe they reached on this guy at 2. It's not a reach if he starts for your team for the next 10 years. Okay. So I'm not saying you have to draft Cam Ward or you have to draft Shador. I'm saying you have to put in the work to identify the guy that's going to lead your franchise. And you can't be afraid to pick him, and you can't be afraid of the pushback. If it's Jackson Dart, then go draft Jackson Dart. If you do all these interviews and you watch all the film and you say it's him, then pass on Shador or pass on Cam and go. But don't be afraid to do it just because we failed at it before. And everything you have as an organization needs to be into finding the quarterback. And again, I don't care what the name of it is. And I'm not going to scream about a reach because I don't care as long as it works out. And how many times people say that Andrew Berry can't draft, but if you go back and you look at all of his drafts, after every single draft, the Browns draft is graded B+ or higher. So he's not reaching on guys. He's taking guys that all the experts are saying are good value. And then 3 years down the road, everybody's killing him, crucifying him, saying he can't draft. Well, at the time, it was considered a good draft. You know what that tells me? It means that the draft is a crapshoot. It means that the high-ranked, high-value guys, they don't pan out all the time. So throw that out and pick the guy that you think is going to lead your franchise. And who cares what other people say?
Yeah, it also tells me that there might be some issues with coaching and development as well, because Andrew Berry's drafting the guys, but then he doesn't walk in, along with them throughout their career. He says, hey, I picked this guy. Here you go, team. Go coach them. Go develop them. Now they're yours. They come to practice. Andrew Berry's not out there with the whistle running drills. So I don't know. I get where people are getting frustrated with the lack of solid contributors throughout his drafts. I understand it. But how much of the miss is on him and the scouting department misses, and how much is it on the lack of development after they're selected? So just something to keep in mind.
That's my big that was just my point is if Andrew Berry missed on a lot of these picks, then so did everybody. Because again, all of his draft grades are B+ and higher. They were all considered good drafts. I can think off the top of my head that Anthony Schwartz was considered somewhat of a reach in the 3rd, but our roster was thought to be so loaded that it was okay because, to get a guy with that kind of speed. But outside of that, he hasn't been accused of just reaching on tons of guys and been getting D- draft grades. And then we wonder how we got here. Every year, everybody says this team's loaded with talent. Yeah, you know what I mean? Every year, Browns fans talk about how loaded we are at talent. And then the after the season, it's Andrew Berry doesn't know talent. Well, 7 months ago, you said this team was loaded with talent. So it's coaching, and some people will be like, you guys always defend Stefanski. Just because we defend him doesn't mean we think he's perfect. There's obviously room to improve. I'm just not willing to give up on the guy when I think he shows promise and you don't know what you're going to replace him with. But speaking of the bridge quarterbacks, then to kind of transition off of, we talked a lot about the rookie quarterbacks, obviously. I'm hearing some names thrown around as possible bridge quarterbacks for the Browns. Obviously, we've talked Kirk Cousins at length. I think he'd be a good fit here, especially if he's healthy. We've talked Derek Carr. That's another name I saw pop up as becoming a more and more realistic option that he's going to get bought out with the new regime down in New Orleans. I've been high on Derek Carr for his entire career. I think he could play good football for a season or two under Kevin Stefanski. But the two names I guess I wanted to talk about today were Aaron Rodgers is going to be, the Jets have decided they're not going to bring him back. And then, so I guess we'll just start there because he's going to be available. We won't have to trade for him. Would you add Aaron Rodgers to this team?
Do you want me to start, Josh?
Yep.
All right. So here's my thing with Aaron Rodgers. Do I think that he's completely lost all talent? No. I do think he's coming off an Achilles injury. My only problem is, man, there's a lot of fucking noise right now in Cleveland and in that locker room. Do we really think Aaron Rodgers is like the best candidate to come in and ultimately, like, I know it's a bridge quarterback, but I just, man, there's a lot of noise and like, just, do we really want to be like the Jets? Like, I know like it's bad right now. And like a lot of things just came out with them. Like I was reading an article about Aaron Rodgers and they're like, hey, if you want to be on this team next year, you just got to show up to all the practices and just don't do McAfee. And he was like, yeah, fuck that. I'm just doing whatever I want. We don't need that, bro. We know the last thing we need is not only Cleveland media freaking out about what we're doing, but now the national media every day is like, oh, Cleveland. I don't want us to be in the news for bad reasons. And I'm tired of turning on TV and it's always bullshit about the Browns. I want good. So for me, I think it's just too much noise, almost too big of a personality.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Situation.
Thanks a lot, Aaron Goldhammer, for floating this one out on ESPN 850 the other day with, Rodgers could be the guy to help keep Myles Garrett in Cleveland, all that kind of stuff. I think that Aaron Rodgers is probably the same sort of situation as to why the Brown, that news or rumor, whatever it was, came out that the Browns were prioritizing Jacoby Brissett over a guy like Joe Flacco, two guys who'd already been here, because I don't know how eager, willing, or even great Joe Flacco is at mentoring younger players behind him. I think he's kind of like I handle my business, I do my thing, you deal with your stuff kind of guy. And I feel like Aaron Rodgers is probably not the guy you want to bring in here if you're bringing a young rookie quarterback trying to help him learn the league and professional football and all that kind of stuff. So I agree with you, Justin. I don't think he's lost everything. No. I mean, he was just shy of 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks on a pretty bad Jets team. So, I mean, I think he can play, but I don't even know if he'd want any part of this situation, to be honest with you.
This is one of those things where, one, would it entice Myles to take away his trade request? I didn't get to watch the whole thing. I just kind of saw the headline where it was talking about the other quarterback we're going to discuss, Matthew Stafford and Rodgers. I think it was Schefter saying, the question was, if the Browns were to add Aaron Rodgers or Matthew Stafford, would it make Myles want to stay? And Adam Schefter says it could. Like it's not completely ruled out. It could change his mind. I'm like with you. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is completely washed by any stretch of the imagination. I did watch him play last year, and like he can still throw the ball, and he's still like pretty athletic in the pocket and that kind of stuff. Like you said, it's just, is he good enough to be worth the noise? In terms of how he is as a teammate, like maybe Packers fans or Jets fans can tell us in the comments if they happen to see this. Is all I know about him is he seemed to really get along well with Zach Wilson. Like, at least from everything I saw in the media and stuff, was like he really took Zach Wilson under his wing and was helping him out. And then when he did tear his Achilles and was working out, he really got close with J.K. Dobbins, another guy like younger than him. Obviously, J.K. is older than Zach Wilson, but like another guy kind of under his wing, working out with him and pushing him and that kind of stuff. So, is he a bad teammate? Has he had teammates come out complaining about him being a bad teammate? Again, I'm not a Packers fan or a Jets fan, so I don't follow the team close. All I know is what I hear him say in the national media, and I don't 100% buy into everything the national media always says. Like it's a 24 hours news cycle. They got to have stuff to talk about. So it's one of those things where it's like, if they did it, I wouldn't be mad about it, but if they decide not to, I completely understand why they're not going to look in that direction. Like, but do I think he could be good in Kevin's offense with Jerry Jeudy and, whoever we would add a running back through the draft and Tillman I think he could be pretty good on this team, So like it's enticing, it's intriguing. But again, I would understand if they don't want to go that direction for all the reasons you guys said. It's just like, we just lived in the media circus for the last few years. Do we want to do that again? Or do we just want somebody who's just, afraid of the camera? You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. It'll be interesting. If it gets Myles to want to stay, I'm thinking about it harder probably, because even though I've been on the camp of it's okay if you end up trading Myles, if you hit on the draft picks and stuff, you get from it. I don't want to trade Myles. I'd much rather Myles be in the brown and orange for, the rest of his career. The other name I've heard tossed around, and I think this would be tougher to do because it would require a trade, I'm pretty sure, is Matthew Stafford. I don't know why the Rams would let him go. I guess the little clip I heard was just because the negotiations last year got a little contentious and they don't know if they're going to be able to reach a deal. I guess they said the top quarterbacks are all making $50 million a year or something, and he's making less than half that. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's a top 10 quarterback still, so could the Browns even afford to trade for him and put him on this team? I don't know. Would he want to come here? I don't know if he has a no trade clause or what the situation is. Would he want to come here and be a part of potentially something that's like his early time in Detroit or his whole time in Detroit minus, Calvin Johnson? I think we're closer than that, but maybe he doesn't. I do think if you add Matthew Stafford to this team, though, one that gets Myles seriously thinking about wanting to stay, because you're adding a guy who's a real leader, a proven winner, a guy who, Matthew Stafford's probably going to go to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like that, I think that gets Myles to really stop and think about like, okay, maybe we are interested in winning this year. I just don't know how it's feasible or why the Rams would they ever let him out of the building. They were a blizzard away from beating the Eagles. If they could have held onto the ball, and I think they're going to be good again next year if they have him. So I don't see there's any way they let him out of the building, but I know his wife went on a podcast and talked about how they love LA, but that, they'd be fine with exploring options and that kind of thing. So I've always been high on Matthew Stafford. I wanted the Browns to get him when it looked like he was going to be leaving Detroit. So that's another guy that I would 100% be cool with being on the Browns. He'd probably be almost maybe the top of my list as long as it's doable.
This episode is brought to you by Danger Coffee. Browns fans, we talk about how Danger Coffee is made free from mold toxins that are in 45% of the world's coffee, but that's not all that Danger Coffee has to offer. Mineral and nutrient deficiencies are a big deal. They make you feel sick, tired, stressed, and they can give you brain fog. These deficiencies negatively affect your immune system, your digestion, sleep, metabolism. Have you ever wondered why you get an initial burst from your coffee, but then you get that little crash not long after? Danger Coffee's patent-pending process remineralizes your body with more than 50 trace minerals and electrolytes, leaving you more energized, engaged, powerful. These micronutrients enter the cells to boost performance. They bind to toxins to provide detoxification support. I know that sounds like a lot, but the bottom line, guys, is minerals matter, and most of us really don't get enough of them on a daily basis. Danger Coffee delivers micronutrients, plus it gives you access to the minerals you already have. Head to dangercoffee.com, use our code DAWGS, DAWGS, for 10% off your order, and that code can be used over and over, so you get 10% off every order you make using code DAWGS. It's time to start every day off with a cup of coffee that gets you going and actually keeps you going. dangercoffee.com, code DAWGS.
I'm with you, Blake. I think that this is the very safe, you can confidently say, if this dude decided to come to Cleveland and not retire after the trade, this would be great. I think that, he's a winner, got Super Bowl pedigree. The stuff that I read about it as far as the situation pretty much dealt with what you said with his wife. And then his brother-in-law is now the quarterback's coach in New York for the Giants. Which, they all have Stafford, all these guys all have ties, I'm pretty sure, with Dayball. Or I'm sorry, whoever his wife's brother, he's got ties with Dayball and the GM and everything. So, they're saying tea leaves, he might go to New York. But if you can get him here, I don't think the price would be that crazy as far as pick wise. I really don't. He's older. They sound like they're kind of selling. I don't know why. Like you said, their defense is really young and really, really good. I think they're going to be competitive with quarterback in play. And there's nobody behind him. You know what I mean? Like Stetson Bennett, that's not the guy. Who was Garoppolo? I mean, I don't know. Ask 49ers fans how they feel about that. I don't know. He's probably not the guy, right? Yeah, right. So like, I think it's safe. I think that would be a home run as far as like for Browns fans. I just don't see it happening.
I think it's crazy too. They came out and said that they're going to trade Cooper Kupp this offseason. So it kind of seems like for whatever reason on the offense side of the ball, they're moving away from their older pieces, or at least trying to. I don't know what the plan is, but I'm not a Rams fan, so I don't follow the news cycle with them. But Blake, did you have anything else about Stafford? Because there's one other name that I've been seeing people post a lot on our comments on social media. I was just going to throw it out to you guys real quick for a discussion.
No, go ahead.
All right, so you talked about Rodgers, you talked about Stafford. Those would be more short-term bridge options because they're older, they're closer to retirement, all that stuff. But a younger guy that we've talked about him before, but Justin Fields gets dropped into our comments on the daily. Like every time I post about a quarterback, somewhere in there, somebody's saying, wait till the 5th round and draft Will Howard, which I just LOL. And then they're putting in, trade for Justin Fields. I'm like, well, he's a free agent, so we don't need to do that. But, do you think Justin Fields would be an option? Now, obviously, I don't think he'd be a bridge guy. He's going to be looking for a longer-term deal, I'm sure. He probably wants a starting opportunity, a chance to prove himself. Blake's got thumbs up, so let's hear what he has to say about Mr. Fields.
First of all, I just want to clarify, you're saying LOL to Will because he's not going to be there that late.
Yeah, they're like, get him in the 5th. I'm like, come on, guys, you guys are ridiculous.
That's what I want to tell, not to divulge too far off from the topic, but all these people doing PFF mock drafts, and you're sending them to us with Jackson Dart in the 3rd and the 4th and Will Howard in the 5th. I'm like, guys, none of these guys are going to be out of the 2nd, probably. Like Will Howard is not going to be there in the 4th or the 5th. Jackson Dart's not going to be there 15, probably.
That's fair.
I quit using PFF for mock drafts completely because this year's a perfect example. If you select the Browns and you don't take Shador Sanders at 2, he doesn't go until partway through the 2nd round. That's not realistic. I don't like using their mock draft simulator. They got some big bugs they got to figure out. So for sure, I'm with you on that.
In terms of Justin Fields, I would bring him in, obviously, if you can. I never understood this notion that Justin Fields can't throw. Obviously, we all watched him at Ohio State, and he was a throw-first quarterback that had the ability to run really well, but he was always a throw-first guy. I think the biggest issue with Justin Fields and why I don't know if he's a fit here is his biggest issues with processing information.
Yes.
Correct, bro. Yes.
Dan Orlovsky called this out before he even got drafted. But when he was, doing film studies on him before the draft, he said, I like Justin Fields, but I would not take him too early because he's kind of a one-read guy. And, he's playing at Ohio State with Chris Olave and all these guys. And guys are wide open. He doesn't have to scan the field. He doesn't have to do a lot of pre-snap stuff. And he's like, and if you watch, he's late on a ton and he misses a ton. And I don't know if he's ever improved on that since becoming a pro. And we just watched a quarterback not be able to process information. And Deshaun is physically gifted still. Obviously, he's probably lost a step with injuries, but he is still physically gifted at throwing the football. I mean, even when we traded for him, every report out of camp for the Browns was this is the best quarterback we've ever had physically. The way he throws the ball, everything about him is the best athlete we've ever had at this position. And then we saw how that turned out because the game is mental, especially at the quarterback position. And so you would have to, I'm not giving up a huge contract to get him, and I'm just not bringing him in and being like, here, you're the starter. If you want to bring in Justin Fields and you want to still draft a rookie and then you still want to bring in somebody else, and then he just happens to be really good and he beats out everybody and becomes your long-term quarterback, well, then that's great. It's almost like a Jared Goff, Hendon Hooker situation. It's like they drafted Hendon Hooker thinking Goff was going to be this bridge, and then Goff turned out to be pretty good for them. I would love for that to happen. First of all, I love Justin Fields, but I'm scared of that, the information processing, and just, I don't know if he's ever improved on that since he became an NFL quarterback.
I see a lot of the same problems with him.
Yep. That was the thing with Chicago last year. Was like, hey, he has a lot of trouble going through reads. We just watched that. We just watched film on top of film, game after game, where there's just people running around wide open and we can't see it. So I'm with you guys. I'm okay. I don't think that's the direction. I mean, if you're going to bring him in, cool, but like, don't pay him $40 million.
No,
I don't even know if I can afford that shit. Honestly, I don't even know.
If you want to give him a Steelers 1-year deal, I'm 100% fine with that. But again, I'm not going and getting Justin Fields and just being like, oh, here, and hand him a 3-year, $80 million contract or what. Like, I'm not doing that.
No, it would have to be
a
1-year deal, which is why
right.
I think he's probably looking for a team that's out of that top 5 that doesn't really have the capital to move up with the Titans if they decide to trade pick 1. So basically, if you're out of the quarterback market in this draft, you're looking for a guy like Justin Fields in free agency this year. You know, if you're the Raiders or the Saints or some of these other teams that you know you're going to need a quarterback. And that's why I think that Jackson Dart honestly will end up being a top 15 pick, because there's just so many teams in that top 15 that need a quarterback really, really bad. And this free agent class, it's not like it's stacked with guys that can come in and give you meaningful games. So I can see a whole lot of things happening. Teams paying bigger contracts to guys that, you know, they probably shouldn't, but it's the way it goes with the market.
No, I'm glad you brought that name up though, because everybody talks about him. I think even my dad is big on Justin Fields, and some of it's Ohio State homerism. I mean, and stuff like that. But again, if you want to bring him in for a cheap contract, I'm all for it. But I like I said, I'd bring in 15 quarterbacks if you could this year, because you got to find one. So I would add as many as the league will let me, if that's what it takes. But just got to be smart with it. I'm not just handing him the keys to the franchise because he played at Ohio State and we think he could be good. He just hasn't had the right situation. I don't know.
Our situation might not be that great. Turns out our situation might be fucked up.
There were red flags coming out of college, and those red flags have continued to be red flags. So that is that's just my only worry there. I guess we kind of talked about it with Stafford then, which would it convince Myles to stay, which we haven't really got to all three of us talk about it since the initial news broke. He's been just kind of doing a media tour, going before the Super Bowl, talking about how he just doesn't think we're ready to win right now. And what do you guys think of the media tour? What do you guys think it's done in terms of public perception of him, especially by Browns fans? And what do you think happened to the point where not that long ago he said he met with the coaching staff in the front office and we were a lot closer than people think, and then out of nowhere he's doing a media tour talking about how it was just time to leave, and we're not in line in terms of being ready to win right now. Like, where are you guys standing with this?
You want me to take it? Go ahead, buddy.
I'll just say real quick, like the media tour, as a Browns fan, just fucking tired of it. Like, I'm tired of the best player, the best defensive player in the league is on my team, and he's on every damn TV spot. It's like he told his agent, line me up on everything you can, everything and everyone. Oh, I want to leave Cleveland. They're not ready to win. It's Cleveland already gets shit on all the time by everybody. It's like, Myles, you already put out the public request and the letter and everything. It's all over social media. Just let it go, man. Like, we can't trade anybody for another month anyway. Just chill out. I don't know. And in terms of what happened, and that, I don't know, it almost makes me afraid that they brought him in and said, the plan is we're going to take, Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. We're not going to take a quarterback, and we're going to try to find a veteran. He was like, I've seen this too many times before here. I'm done. I don't know.
I'd make the argument with just the constant, like, every time there's another interview, it almost looks like desperation. You know what I mean? And the Browns aren't desperate to trade him. There's actually all the leverage is on the Browns side. So I think it just kind of messes with his value. You're probably got teams calling up and going, yeah, we know Myles isn't happy. So, what do you think? 2/3, or is that good enough? I don't know you know what I mean? Obviously he's not worth 2/3, but I think that the constant just, hey, I want to get the hell out of here. Give me the hell out of here, please. Oh, Philly. Yeah, that would be dope. Oh, Washington, great core. I think it just it almost lowers his value. It makes him look desperate to leave. And the leverage is all on one side, you know?
And it's pissing the fans off, too. I've seen a lot of fans, on social media stuff in our comments. They're like, yeah, I was with him when he first came out with the trade request, but now I'm kind of sick of it, and it's, if Myles, if we don't trade you and you're here next year, like might be a little awkward, sometimes. With I don't know how the fans are going to feel. Like, are they going to cheer you as emphatically as they did last year? I don't know.
I think it's going to get awkward regardless. Because
Yeah.
I really, unless like the Browns get a haul, like a crazy offer, I don't think, it doesn't make sense, especially like how the cap situation is right now.
Because I read
it doesn't make any damn sense to me.
Jack Duffin's article. I mean, he's the only one I read about cap stuff anymore. He breaks everything down very well. And I mean, he even said multiple times, the most likely scenario is he's here. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to trade him financially.
Right. And then I think you have to get him under contract too, before you can even, you know what I mean? Because they have so much dead money kicked down the road. It's like, I don't know.
I feel like the media tour is his one attempt to gain leverage because he knows he has none.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I can just burn enough bridges, then they'll be tired of me and they'll get rid of me because they don't want to deal with the headache and the media circus and the fans. And so it's like his only piece of leverage to try to get out of here. The public perception, I feel like, is, I'm not going to say it's done a full 180, but compared to where it was when he first released the letter, considering a couple hours after the letter to the request to be traded, there was a protest outside of Brown Stadium against the organization.
That's true.
And now I'm seeing much more talk like, okay, get what you can get for him if that kind of thing. So I think it's his only piece of leverage in terms of trying to force his way out of here. It's one of those things where, and I think I mentioned this on my episode with Kenny, and I don't agree with Tony Grossi on hardly anything. But like he said, the Browns don't owe Myles anything. Like they tried to build a contender around Myles, and maybe they swung and missed at the quarterback position, but he wanted Baker gone. Like that was widely reported that he was done with Baker and he wanted Baker gone. They went and they spend the most money of any team in the league in terms of the roster and the way that they're, doing bonuses and this stuff to try to add talent to the team. And it's not like you've been a model citizen here. You got suspended for hitting a guy with a helmet. You wrecked your car. And I talked about this before. It's like, and you didn't play for free. They don't owe you anything. They paid you handsomely for your time here. You know who they owe it to? Us. We're the people who are owed things. We're the ones who spend money on gear. We're the ones who go to games and pay the crazy concession prices and come cheer for you when it's 30 below zero and it's raining. Like, they owe it to us to get the most out of you as possible, and whether it be keep you here and you perform at a high level, or they trade you and it's whoever gives us the best capital back. I don't care where you want it. We don't need to do right by you. This is not a Joe Thomas situation. Joe Thomas never asked to be traded. We went to him at the twilight of his career and said, listen, Joe, we know we're not anywhere close to contending. Do you want us to trade you to a contender for you to try to get that chance? I think it was Indy. Peyton Manning wanted
I think you're right.
Joe Thomas to come to Indianapolis, and I'm pretty sure the Browns were like, Joe, we'll do that for you. Like, you've given us all this time. You've never asked for anything in return, and we will do right by you and get you there if you want. And he said no. And he stayed here, and he became a Hall of Famer in the brown and orange. This isn't that situation. You're asking to be let go. Well, okay, fine. We'll let you go, but we don't owe you anything because we paid you for your time here. Okay, you didn't play for free. You didn't volunteer. We don't owe you anything. We owe it to the organization and the fans to put the best team possible on the field. And the only way to do that is to trade you, either keep you or trade you to whoever's going to give us the best capital back. And I don't care if I'm trading you to the freaking Canadian Football League if they somehow give me the best return. Like, you'll freaking play in Siberia if that's what it takes for us to have a good team. We don't owe you anything. And maybe that sounds cruel. I like Myles. I want him to retire in the brown and orange, but you're not above the Browns. When you're not here, especially because you requested a trade, you'll be forgotten, and I'm still going to be a Browns fan. Like, that's just the way it is. No one player is above me being a fan of the Browns. I'm not a Myles Garrett fan. I'm a Browns fan. So we don't owe you anything. The organization owes it to the fans to put together the best team possible. And if that means you end up on a worse team than the Browns, so be it. So be careful what you wish for.
I think that's a pretty good mic drop moment from Blake Reniker right there. That's good stuff, man. No, I mean, I agree with you 100% on that. It's what I mean. What do you want? You want us to prioritize sending you to a contender? We're going to get worse capital back because that's what you want. Because you want to leave, because you want out 2 years early on your contract that you signed, by the way. Nobody put a gun to your head and said, you got to sign this contract, this extension to be in Cleveland and stay here. You wanted that. You chose it. You signed on the dotted line. So deal with it. Like, if you want out now, that's almost like, it's like tough shit, dude.
Correct me. Did he sign this extension? Was it the year we traded for Deshaun? Or was it after Deshaun's first year where he only played 6 games?
I'll look it up real quick.
Because he signed that extension when we traded for Deshaun, he took that as, I want to be here because look at what we're doing. Look at the quarterback we just added. So because that quarterback who
2020. So it was when Kevin first came in. Baker was still here.
It was when Baker was still here. Okay.
It was the 2020 season before 2020. So that year we went to the playoffs and won.
The playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess that renders my point mute. I was going to say, if you signed an extension after we added Deshaun, that tells me you were on board with getting Deshaun. So you were just as wrong about him as the organization was. But no, I hope Myles is here next year and we don't even have to ever talk about this, and it becomes like a thing of the past. Like, nobody holds anything against Njoku. In fact, Njoku's probably my favorite current Cleveland Browns player. And he's probably on my Mount Rushmore favorite Browns players in my adult life. And he asked for a trade once or twice. So this will all be forgotten if we get it figured out. But if not, I don't want it to sound harsh, but it's tough. Like, you're going to go wherever you go, and you might just be in squalor. Have fun in Carolina, or some other dumpster fire organization. Like, have fun. We're going to be here still trying to figure it out, but we're going to do what's works for us.
Right. Fair, bro.
So, but all right, I think we're approaching the hour mark. So we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. Again, we appreciate you guys being here. This is episode 490 something. So we are inching closer to episode 500, which again will be on Sunday, February 16th, live on YouTube at 2:00 p.m. Again, become a YouTube member between now and the end of the episode, or if you already are one, be entered for a chance to win a Dogs Podcast t-shirt during that episode. Become a Dog Pack member between now and the end of that episode, or if you already are one, you will be entered for a chance to win a Browns jersey. That's jointhedogs.com to become an official Dog Pack member. We're excited to do that episode. We can't wait to do a live, show you some of the surprises we have in store. I think you guys are going to like it. Make sure you have the notification bell tapped this week. We got a couple more things coming out about the Senior Bowl. I think Josh has some stuff to put out. Some more good stuff on some potential draft prospects for the Browns. So let us know what you think the Browns should do it too. Let us know what you guys think of the continued Myles situation. But we appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you guys later this week and talking about the Senior Bowl, or not the Senior Bowl. Yeah, the Senior Bowl. And then we'll see you guys on Sunday I couldn't remember if you're doing Senior Bowl or just prospects in general. But
yeah, it's Senior Bowl with Barry Shuck. Defensive side of the ball this time. We just wrapped up
defensive side
the
of the
offense.
Ball. Defense, yeah. I tell you, we're not winging it right now. This was all very planned, I promise. But again, we'll see you guys for that. And then don't miss it Sunday at 2:00. The more the merrier. I think it's going to be a really good time. So make sure you guys are there. Until then, have a good one. And Myles, get your head out of your butt.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dogs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at The Dogs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedogspodcast.com.
This episode is brought to you by Bodden Sports. Browns fans, Bodden Sports is your one-stop shop for all your athletic gear. Bodden started out perfecting and manufacturing the best balls in the business. Yeah, if that sounded dirty, that's more about your mind than my words. But hey, it's true. Baseballs, softballs, footballs, basketballs, volleyballs, soccer balls, you name it, and Bodden has engineered the highest standard sports balls available. And now they offer more than just sports balls. If you got kids playing baseball or softball, Baden has batting gloves and bats to go along with both game balls and training balls. If you're into basketball, Baden makes basketball specifically for indoor or outdoor use. Heck, Baden even has all the equipment you need for pickleball, which is one sport that I hear everyone is playing, and yet I still never have. And I need to fix that soon. But don't miss the backyard games section of Baden's website, where you can order everything you need for this upcoming outdoor season. Pool balls, backyard volleyball nets, croquet, bocce, horseshoes, cornhole, and more. Right now, you can get 10% off your entire order at Baden Sports, BADEN sports.com/dogs, DAWGS, and use promo code DOGS when you check out. That's 10% off all the top quality sporting gear you need this season. BadenSports.com/dogs.
O'Reilly. Save on your next oil change at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Choose Castrol Edge Full Synthetic Motor Oil to provide maximum performance and protection for your engine. Get a $15 gift card after rebate when you buy 5 quarts of Castrol Edge for $34.95. Plus 2 times O Rewards points. Offer valid in-store and online at O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.